The habit people have of deceiving themselves into not having the freedom to make choices for fear of the potential consequences of those choices is known as bad faith. Bad faith was a term originally coined by John Paul Sartre in the mid-20th century. We're all so afraid of the future. Hell, I don't even know what I'm going to do tomorrow, man. And sometimes the anxiety you have of making a choice that's going to affect your future causes you to be paralyzed. It paralyzes you insofar as you can't even act in the present. A lot of my life, the potential future consequences of my choices were so scary that I ended up not making them in the first place. And I've lost a lot of time because of it. It doesn't just relate to myself. I also think that this bad faith has to do with some friends that I've had. So, having friends in your life means that they're a human factor, they're a person you have to listen to. That is if you're a good friend. You could be a shitty person and just ignore them, but keep them around somewhat. And I might contradict myself a little bit later in this video, so please forgive me already. I ended up not making a lot of choices for myself because I wanted to keep a girlfriend around. Because I had a conception of the future that included them, and because they were a large factor, a human factor, a person who feels things, who has ambitions of their own, I had to sacrifice something of myself to make sure that they were going to be around. Or I had ambitions that I wanted to do with somebody else. Ambitions that I wanted to achieve as a group, as a cooperative. But the person ended up not following through with the ambitions I had in mind. They were either too lazy, or we just had creative differences, and I lost time. And part of the reason that I didn't drop them was because I was afraid of letting go of that friend. I think freedom is something you can only experience by yourself. German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer, in his book Essays and Aphorisms, once said, "A man can only be himself only so long as he is alone, and if he does not love solitude, he will not love freedom. For it is only when he is alone that he is really free." And this is sort of a strange idea if you think about it, because we're so used to thinking of freedom as a happy thing. We usually equate freedom with joy. A true free life, a life full of liberty where you can do whatever you want, whatever your heart desires. Well, that doesn't end up being true if you want to have a lot of people around, because as Schopenhauer points out, if you're around others, you sacrifice a portion of yourself for that person. And that means that you're going to sacrifice your future. You may not make choices that benefit you because they won't benefit your friends. And I've done this so many times that I'm now 22 years old. I'm looking into the past going, what the fuck was I thinking? But hey, you only learn one way. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out though. And I'm looking forward to the future because I have it in my hands. We all have it in our hands, really. We just need to recognize that freedom, if we really want it, is something that we can experience only alone, not with other people. I was watching Star Wars Episode 3 the other day. Yes, I like the prequels. I like the prequels and the original trilogy. I'll make another video on that some other time. But Anakin Skywalker, just to give a quick synopsis, turns to the dark side in Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Mainly because he's so afraid of losing a loved one that it turns him into something that he's not, and causes him to commit atrocities that he otherwise would never due to that fear. After a nightmare of losing his beloved Padme in childbirth, he consults Yoda. And I'm sure you all know who that guy is. Wise, green, lightsaber-wielding Jedi Master. Well, Yoda says something really interesting to Anakin. Anakin asks how he can save Padme so that the future doesn't manifest itself in the way he saw in his dreams. Yoda says, "Train yourself to let go of everything you fear to lose." Now, the quote may seem relevant only in the Star Wars universe, but if you look at it in a greater context, it's actually kind of Buddhist, if you ask me. And the reason is, Buddhism claims that life is suffering, and that the way to end the suffering is to let go of desire. It's kind of similar, it's not the same thing. I feel like they're cut from the same cloth. These two quotes, I mean. And so, where this kind of plays into my life is, I feel like I'm always sacrificing myself for other people because I'm afraid of letting them go. I want these people around. I recognize I have a future in mind that may not have a place for them as I see it, and I'm just trying to jam them in there, and as a result, I'm not living the ideal that I initially set out for myself. Which is sort of sad, but here's the other thing. A lot of your friends that you're afraid of losing may not even be good friends. I'm sure that some of you have great friends and you don't argue a lot and they don't manipulate you. Maybe you've known them for 20 years and you don't want to lose that because of the sentimental value of your friendship. But also, something interesting that happens over the course of a friendship, especially a long one, is you were obviously younger when you became friends with these people. And you were probably a different person too. We're constantly evolving and thinking about our lives in ways that are very abstract, and we may not be able to express them very clearly to those around us, but one can say for sure that we're not the same person we were when we were in kindergarten, as we were when we were in high school, as we are now. When you meet a friend in high school, and you keep that friend all the way through college, your values may change, and the friend may not be as compatible with the life you have envisioned for yourself as he may have been 10 years ago. Who knows? The one thing that you have to think of is, do you value your friend, or are you not afraid of letting go of that person so that you can pursue the future? And by let go, I mean not letting this person get in the way of your plans. That's to say, pursuing your plans insofar as this friend may not like them, may not like what you are doing, and distance him or herself from you in the process of pursuing those goals. It's not an easy thing to think about, and it's something that I'm still dealing with myself. But 2020 has been the year where I've lost most friends because of the thing in the air that we all know about, isolation. Either way, having lost a lot of the friends who I thought were really close to me made me realize that I could lose them at any moment. I sacrificed parts of my life for them, but having lost them, I could have traveled down a different trajectory. The wisdom I have accrued thanks to these bad friendships is that from now on, I'm going to pursue my goals and not let anybody else get in my way, no matter how much I love them. And I don't think that this is going to be as easy to play out as it is to talk about in a small YouTube video. The last metaphor that I want to bring up before I'm done is something out of Fight Club. The Incel Bible. Look, there are a lot of things about Fight Club that I'm not really into, and Fight Club has often been described as one of the most misinterpreted books of all time. So if I'm about to misinterpret it, that's to say, in the way that Chuck Palahniuk originally intended for me to read it, so be it. But I think this interpretation is helpful for me. A quick synopsis of Fight Club. There is the narrator who lives a very boring life. All of a sudden, he meets a guy named Tyler Durden. Tyler Durden shows him how to let go of his inhibitions and become the person he wants to be. The question is that who he really wants to be? But for those of you who haven't read Fight Club, I'd rather not spoil it in this video. Anyhow, there's a passage in the book where Tyler's talking to the narrator, kisses his hand, and pours lye over it. And the chemical reaction of the saliva and the lye causes a chemical burn. As the chemical burn is searing his flesh and the narrator is screaming out in pain and trying to distract himself, Tyler describes to him a little story of something that happened in ancient civilization. In ancient history, human sacrifices were made on a hill above a river. Thousands of people. The sacrifices were made and bodies were burned to a pyre. After hundreds of people were sacrificed and burned, a thick white discharge crept from the altar, downhill to the river. Rain fell in the burnt pyre year after year, and year after year people were burned. And the rain seeped through the wood ashes to become a solution of lye. And the lye combined with the melted fat of the sacrifices, and a thick white discharge of soap crept off from the base of the altar and crept toward the river. Where the soap fell into the river after 1,000 years of killing people in the rain, the ancient people found their clothes got cleaner if they washed at that spot. It's a very interesting quote because in order to cleanse, in order to move on in life, we need pain. We need suffering. And Tyler Durden in the movie is quoted, "Without pain, without suffering, we would have nothing." And that's why the fear of losing people ends up holding you back from this cleansing. My life may have been a fire, but the rain combining with all the ashes make lye, combine with the corpses of my sorrow and make soap, therefore cleansing my life. I'm excited for the future. I don't really know what's going on ahead, but I figured I'd make this little video essay just so that I can share it with you.